Hey, it's Ross from rosslukman.com, and today I want to talk to you about switching battery switches, if that makes sense. I used to use the Blue Sea Systems 9003E. I'll put it out there, and the Blue Sea Systems 6006. And there are a lot of copycats on the market, so you've probably seen these switches. But I want to talk about why I've pretty much abandoned using those switches, and I've switched to this BEP Pro 770EZ. And it's kind of changed my whole system design, because you might say, who cares, this switch, that switch, just get a high quality switch and we're going to cut off the batteries and do maintenance on the system or whatever. But this BEP switch, it's also sold under Marine Co. brand. That has really changed my system design and what I'm able to do. And it's increased the compactness of my systems, the efficiency, so we don't have tons of cables linking everything. We're able to kind of cram it all together in a very compact setup. And it's kind of like Legos. You're able to create different variations and kind of stick all the parts together. And I've really kind of lost my passion for the Blue Sea switches, even though they are high quality switches and they're really made by the same company. It's owned by the same conglomerate, which I believe is Navico. They own BEP Marine Co. as well as Blue Sea Systems. So it's the same conglomerate competing against itself. But this switch has really revolutionized the way I design systems, and I pretty much use it in every system design. Most of my systems are not set up like this one, but it's in this system, and it's in pretty much anything new that I'm designing nowadays. And I wanted to tell you why that is. So going back to the beginning, battery switches are going to be for doing maintenance when you need to cut off power so you can add or subtract something from the larger system. It's also going to be for system storage when you want to isolate the batteries and go ahead and turn off that switch and make sure you don't have any parasitic loads on the batteries during a storage situation. And the third one, I've got my list here, emergency shutdown. So if there's a fire and something's burning out here and you don't really know what's going on, you want to cut off the power and stop the bleeding, so to speak. So you want to be able to turn off that battery switch. So let me show you the unique feature of this switch that opens up a whole world of possibilities. And that is the cover comes off and the switch base and the switch mechanism are in a separate base. And we can bolt our cables to the front of the switch. So this is unique. I've never seen this in any other switch. And quite frankly, even if you get one of the other BEP switches, like their double pole switch, it does not quite work like this. So this is a single pole switch, and the giveaway is going to be these little gray screws, little gray plastic screws on the front. Hopefully you can see that. But let's talk about some of the specifications. So first off, it's rated for 400 amps continuous, and the original switch was rated for 350 amps. Now, frankly, that's not a huge deal because we're not going to be running continuous currents, especially as we go from 12 volt systems to higher voltage 24 and 48 volt systems. You're just not running that kind of amperage through these switches. So it's nice that it has 400 amps instead of 350 for the Blue Sea edition, but you could get a heavy duty Blue Sea switch that'll do 600 amps continuous. It's not really needed, but 350, bumping it up to 400 is nice. The real beauty here, though, is it's part of the BEP Pro installer system, okay? So this is where the switch is part of a full ecosystem, and you're able to do some pretty cool tricks. And kind of going back to the Lego analogy, this is where you can kind of put the Legos together. So the height of this bus bar is the same height as the lugs on this switch. And so they have these little link bars. I'll put that out. So it's basically tin plated copper, and it's pretty thick there. And you can get the link bars to link the bolts together. And because everything's at the same height, you don't have any wonky, things out of alignment. It's all going to be at the same height, so you can add your link bars and link everything together and get a good electrical contact there, so you don't have any hot connections. Now, the other thing that you can add is fuse blocks. So this is crazy. This is really crazy because traditionally I would have it like I have, like you see here. The cables are linking all of the components, and you just used to make little jumper cables to link everything together. And basically, the further you go, the more of a voltage drop you're going to have, and that equals a power loss. Anytime the voltage drops down the length of a cable, you lose a little bit of power. And the other thing is the compactness. So, and the labor. You're going to have to make all these extra cables, whereas if you can just use, let me see if I can get the cover off of there. Okay. So this is an A&L fuse block, and we might need a longer link bar, but they make different lengths of these. They've got some that have 3 holes, 4 holes, up to, I believe, 5 or 6 holes there. And again, it's at the same height as the switch base. You can put that link bar in there and you're done. And the switch, or the fuse, has its cover, the switch has its cover. And so you can cover everything up, and it's very tight. There's not a lot of voltage drop between components, and the installer can come in there, bing, bang, boom, pop in your link bars, link everything together, and you're not making all these special cables to bring it all together. So I wanted to point out something, and I'll show a little clip here, but in this situation, I've got 2 batteries coming in. So I've got 2 batteries here, and the fuse is taken care of at the battery. So you can see this MRBF terminal fuse. So the fusing has already been taken care of, and we're going to go into the switch and then out into the rest of the system. This is a Lynx distributor from Victron. So we've got chargers and loads going out that way. But let's say that we have more than 2 batteries. Now, traditionally, I would have daisy chained my batteries together. And you may see this in some of my older videos where you link your batteries and you leave the positive from the one end of the battery bank, you go out on positive, and from the other end of the battery bank, you go out on negative, and those home run cables go into your system, into the rest of your system. What's a little better than that is to have equal length cables going to each battery. So with these positive cables here, from this bolt, this cable to the battery out front is the same length as the cable to the battery at the back. So we've got a little slop in this cable. It's got a little bit of a curve in it because it's the same length. It doesn't have to go as far. But what we're doing is we're evening out the voltage drop, which I mentioned earlier, and making sure each battery is treated equally and it's going to charge and discharge equally. So bringing it back to our switch, when you use like a 3-stud bus bar here, this is part of the BEP Pro kit. Basically, you can put that right next to the switch, and you can bring in 3 batteries to the switch there. And because it's the same height, you can use a link bar to link them together, land your 3 battery positive cables, and they go right into the switch seamlessly. So this is something that's really not possible with this switch. And the other thing is you're going to have to mount the cables to the back. So we would tighten down our cables, and then we would turn it around and we would put our screws to mount it to a board like this. And so I don't want it to complain too much. It's a little bit more of an awkward process. I really love that I can bolt this switch base down, and I can come in and bolt all my cables and then show up, at the end, and I can do my, let me drop in some of these items here. But I can come in and add that cover later. Now, one of the things that is really nice as well is the ability to rotate the cover. So it doesn't matter how you orient the label. And basically there is a little 4-sided plus sign that is going to key into the back of the cover here. And they are going to fit together. And then when the cover rotates, it's going to rotate the mechanism in the switch. And so I really like that the side covers here are removable and you can move them to a different side. And if we wanted to have the cables come in this way and exit that way, we could. And so it's really customizable. And like I said, I haven't gone back to the Blue Sea switch that I used for years. It's a great switch, but it's kind of made to be used one way, and it's not part of a larger ecosystem. You got to put cables into it and cables out of it. And if you want to cram it all together, it gets awkward. Some people attempt it, but this is going to set you up for a much cleaner setup. And I'll go ahead and put the cover back over here, but I have another demonstration to show you, and this is using the Lynx Clean Install Kit from Trek Systems. And to lock that on, all you do is take a Phillips or a plus head screwdriver and just rotate those little plastic caps there, and that is locked on. Now, hopefully you're impressed by what I showed you here, but if we want to make it even more compact, we can use the Lynx Clean Install Kit from Trek Systems. And so this is a Lynx distributor, just like you see here. And what they did is they have the M10 Lynx distributor that has 10mm holes on the end. So this is an M8. It's got 8mm holes here. It's about 5/16 of an inch. This is about 3/8 of an inch. Well, the switch has 10mm studs on it. Let me see if I can get that off. All right. So you may be able to see here, the switch bolts right into the distributor. And so does this smart shunt battery monitor. And over here, we have a Lynx power in. And so it's similar to a distributor, but it doesn't have any fuse blocks. And basically your 4 batteries, up to 4 batteries can come in here. So you can see it looks similar, but it's missing the fuse blocks and the circuit board in the middle. So you can have your 4 batteries, up to 4 batteries come in here. They're going to pass through the switch and through the battery monitor. So the battery monitor is tracking what's coming and going through it to tell you what's left in your battery bank, how much fuel you have left in the tank, so to speak. So as you can see, this is very seamless. You are going to use some link bars. You can see there's a link bar here between the switch and the Lynx power in. There's another link bar between the battery monitor and the Lynx power in. But basically, this is super compact, and you can orient it this way. It doesn't really matter. And as I said, you can rotate that switch face. So let's say you put it vertical and you want the switch to read a certain way, you can put the switch vertical like that. Or if you want it to read sideways, you can rotate the switch face sideways, and the mechanism is the same. It's still going to rotate to the on position and then back to the off position. And it's going to key into the mechanism there to operate the switch mechanism. So this is the Lynx Power In kit. Lynx Clean Install Kit, excuse me, from Trek Systems is the distributor and into the switch. And then they have a Power In add-on kit. If you want to add this Lynx Power In to the mix, that is a separate kit. And basically, they're going to send you some little spacers here on the back. They're 3D printed spacers, and they're going to go on there. And basically, it makes the Victron items, like the distributor and the switch base, it makes them all line up so they're on the same plane, and they can all bolt together. So as you can tell, oops, as you can tell, you are cramming a lot of infrastructure together here. There's less voltage drop, there's less power loss, and it's going to take up less space, because a lot of the vans and RVs that I help people with, there's not a lot of space, and maybe you need room for batteries and inverters and all that. So you don't want your main power distribution to take up tons of real estate. And so that's what's really great about this switch, and kind of it just opens up a whole ecosystem basically of things that it connects to without cables. And so the main system is the BEP Pro installer system. And if you go to Trek Systems, it's trek.systems. They're going to have the links, clean install kit, and the power in add-on kit to make all this bolt together. And basically going to give you the spacers and an extra long bolt to allow the battery monitor to bolt onto this thick bus bar for the distributor, things like that. Now, I have a battery monitor here and a battery monitor over here. This is a smart shunt. Truth be told, a lot of the batteries are starting to have that shunt in each battery, and then they are going to report their data up to your main monitoring at a Serbo or Ekrano GX for Victron systems. But increasingly, we're seeing these shunts in the batteries themselves, and they just report directly. So you're not necessarily going to need a shunt in there, but if you do, it will bolt right in. And so it's kind of hard to show all the things that you can do with this switch and the full ecosystem, but you can basically do anything that you need to do. And that is my point. It's very clean, it's very compact, and I would definitely recommend the BEP Pro 770EZ. I'll put a link below. Now, if you want to learn about electrical systems in general, not just the switches, but things like batteries, inverters, solar power, alternator power, I have a document that you may be interested in called the Ultimate Van Power Cheat Sheet. It has a discussion of the 3 major charging sources that you're going to find in vans and RVs, which are solar, shore, and alternator power. And it's going to discuss how they all have some strengths, but they also have weaknesses. But when you bring them together, it's going to give you a holistic power strategy to make sure that you have power out on the road, so you're not worried about running out of power and you can focus on what you went out there to see. The next page is going to have a discussion of different battery types and the strengths and weaknesses of those. That's going to help you narrow in on the very important decision of which battery to go with. And then lastly, there is a really cool diagram that is a conceptual diagram of your entire system on one page. It's going to show how the power comes in at the top from, say, your solar panels, and how it makes its way through the system and comes out at your end devices, such as your refrigerator or your laptop. So that is a really illuminating diagram that's going to show, as I said, your entire system on one page. So if you'd like to grab a copy, it's called the Ultimate Van Power Cheat Sheet. All you have to do is click the link below or go to rosslukman.com/vanpower. So that is my review and why I love the BEP Pro 770EZ switch and have kind of quit using the Blue Sea. Hopefully that'll help you with your system designs, making everything a little bit more compact, more efficient, and maybe a little bit better looking as a system. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Be sure to grab a copy of your cheat sheet, link down below. I'll talk to you soon.